As you may know, I started out as a game developer, like way back in the day when the game scene was young in Finland. And so I did that for like about 15 years or so. That led me moving to the US. And so after about 15 years, I got tired of the game development. That was pretty stressful and tiring work. So I started traveling the world. I went from the US to China. Somehow I got stuck there for about 2 years. I met my wife there, and we started building a Siha, which is a social network together, in order to accommodate people we know from both sides. So her friends didn't know any English, and my friends obviously didn't know any Chinese, and then like my parents only spoke Finnish. So we had to build a place where different people can communicate together even though they don't have the same language. And that's how Siha was born. And that was around 2007. And because I started one company in China, and so I went through the process of building a company, hiring people, running it there, and it was kind of fun, but I didn't want to do it there again because of the bureaucracy and of the corruption and all that. So Siha was actually founded in Finland. So kind of the whole circle back, from the US to China and then back to Finland. And we started building Siha like as just a social network, as a hobby type of thing. I didn't know anything about venture funding back then. I didn't know. I was a programmer. I built it myself. We hired a few people. We started building it, and it grew really fast. I think at the peak we got like 26 million or so users, which at the time was huge for a social network. And we got people, from all over the world, from 200 different countries. And I think we could have maybe had a chance there if we knew what we were doing. But, well, as it turned out, we were just ahead of Facebook. So we were kind of the first social network where you can actually use it in your own language around the world. But pretty soon after we reached our peak, we noticed that there's this thing called Facebook that everybody's talking about that starts growing around the world. And people who used to be active users of our site started dropping out. And they all went to Facebook. And we were like, well, what can we do here? We didn't really have experience. And our traffic started going down, our revenue started going down, and we knew that we could run out of money at some point. So we before we would ultimately crash and collapse, we decided that we're going to have to do something, and it would be best to use whatever expertise we already gathered from the dealing with languages, dealing with people from different backgrounds, and that's kind of how we ended up starting Transfluent. It happened sort of accidentally. I think it was Rovio was the first one who asked us to build sort of like a site where different users of their games could get information in their language, and we built that together as a sort of something to do in the interim while we figure out what we do. But that was the right path to take. That led to another customer and another, and started refining itself. And then mid 2011 we launched officially this thing that was called Transfluent. So yeah, it's this big machine that you can ask any question, like kind of like, oh, how is this sentence in another language? How is this book in another language? It translates text for you, but it's all done by humans. So from the outside, you don't really deal with people. It's very efficient user interface, but on the back end, we have this system where we have currently more than 100,000 translators in a little over 100 languages. The system it finds who's available right now, assigns the work for them, they do the work, and it goes back to you. So it's a very seamless way of getting any text-based material translated to any language, and it's used by businesses mostly because it's not a network of just random people from the internet. They are all professional translators. So we pay them whatever they would be paid normally when they work in a translation company, and our rates that we charge from our customers are pretty much the same. So at the end of the day, it's a business service. It works almost like traditional translation companies. It's just much faster and much more flexible. Normally you have something you need to translate. It might take 2 weeks and you need to give the material in whatever format the translation company wants. We work on your terms. You tell us when you need it, you keep it in the file format you need. Like if you're a game developer, you just give us the resource files you have. We work based on those. We don't ask you to do the work. So that is kind of like, that's the secret of being human powered, that we can actually be very adaptive. Well, we see a lot of demand in the US for Spanish, obviously, and Chinese. Those are the big ones where much of the trade is going to. Obviously, the major European languages as well. And then our office in Finland, on the other hand, sees a lot of need for Finnish to English, Russian, German, Swedish, so the local languages. And I think that's the case just about everywhere in the world, wherever the local businesses do most business with is where they need translate to as well. So what we do mostly is customer support related, marketing and customer relations. We translate communication, emails coming from customers. You have a question coming, say in Japanese, and you don't have anyone on staff who can handle it. We translate that into English. You read it in English and you reply to it. We translate the response back. So you are actually able to communicate with your customers in any language, any time of day. That's something that's very unique and useful for many of our customers. Then obviously we do marketing. We work with film companies on subtitling. We work with a lot of different types of needs that require pretty fast-paced response times for the translation tasks. Yeah, we see like our growth is pretty much driven by the globalization of trade these days. More and more companies are actually going global and communicating that way. So it's not as much media needs than just the pure advertising and marketing needs. You really need to be able to reach out to your customers in their language. And since you can ship, you can accept payments anywhere in the world. So there is no reason why you wouldn't also be marketing. So the communication is kind of the key here. And media companies itself, they're unfortunately not in general doing very well. So we don't have too much. We know that there's a lot of companies who'd like to do like blog posts and add their content in multiple languages, but they don't really have the cash. So the real market is currently driven by those who are making money by selling products. That's like the real driver for the global economy. Since our system is pretty much based by people, then people are the most important part, and how we recruit and how we ensure quality is very important for us. We build a process that allows us to go through a pretty massive number of translators in a fairly efficient way. There is obviously always a cost involved in adding any person, because we have to have them do a test. We have another translator evaluate that and score it. If you are applying for a specific translator type, like if you're doing social media or comic books or legal text, the test would be different, and it has to be analyzed different way and scored different way, so that when a customer comes to us asking for translation of a contract text, legal text for example, we would know who is the best right now available in our network to do the work. And we constantly keep updating these scores as we progress and do more work and get feedback. We kind of maintain probably the world's largest database of like quality data on translators. That's kind of almost a secret sauce that we have that allows us to be able to do almost any type of project, anytime, with confidence that we can deliver what the customers are expecting. Yeah, I think really like the worst. I wouldn't say it's a worst experience, but the kind of failure was what happened with Siha, where I think we had all the cards in hand. If we knew what to do, if I knew how to raise money, or the concept of venture funding to begin with, I think we could be in a different place. We were just trying with the very limited resources, and we could have at a time, when you grow in a couple of years to 20 million users. If I'd be here in Valley, I would have been able to raise a lot of money and build a big team, and maybe be in the game, maybe not. It's after the fact, it's hard to say. Maybe we would have failed anyway. But that's kind of the only one that's happened in that scale so far. There are failures in every single day, I'm sure. Like things don't always go as you plan, and that's a good thing. You kind of try a lot of things, and some of those work. And that's how we've been building the company so far. So we basically we have an idea, let's just do it without thinking too much. And we go with what sticks. So we go and talk to our customers. Oh, we have this new product. Would you like to start using it? And we do that before we have the product. So as soon as someone says, yeah, that's great, we go and we quickly try to build it. That's how we've ended up with something that is in great demand. A lot of people are willing to pay money for it, rather than first building it. So I think this kind of micro failure is better than the grand scale failure that happened with Siha. I would say we are a disruptive company for sure. We don't mean to be disruptive. That's not the point. It's more like looking at the problem, like what I had living in different parts of the world, and having friends who speak different languages made me realize how much need there is to translate, and how all the talk about English becoming the language of the internet is just not true. It's only from the point of view of some people in Silicon Valley, when all the people around them are speaking English, they think that's the rest of the world. So I think disruption happens from just a real life experience. I tried to use translation services. It was, as a game developer at the time, it was not my preference to start building a translation company. I would never have expected that to happen. But since there was need and I had to do something about it, that one thing led to another, and here I am. So the accidental disruption, I think, is the best, because it stems from the fact that you're not trying to disrupt, you're just solving a problem that you have. Well, I mean, I wouldn't consider it a win to raise money. It's you have to fund your operations one way or another. And VCs, professional investors especially, they don't really expect to get their money back. They expect to get good return on their portfolio as a whole, and they know some of those fail, and they expect that you as an entrepreneur, you are trying your best. You will do the best that you can. If you fail, you fail. So there is not really any pressure that I feel from investors on a personal level, that they put the money into me, so I have to be successful. I think many of the professional investors rather see you give up at the right time than kill yourself. The pressure doesn't really come from that. It's just from the personal desire to actually make it. And I think having investors on board has been super useful for me. The best investors introduce you to new people, give you advice, and kind of stand behind you when you need it. So that there's been times when we were running out of money, for example, the plans didn't quite pan out. Then it's great to have investors behind you who say, like, okay, well, let's give you more money, and let's straighten this out. Let's figure out what to do, because we still believe you are going to make it. And that's the kind of best experience. When you don't have funding, you're pretty alone. You don't have anyone whose best interest would it be to actually save you. I think learning happens like every day. You build your business and you learn from mistakes. I mean, it's someone, I don't know if it's Steve Blanco, who said that if you don't fail, you haven't tried enough. Like basically, and I totally agree with that. It's very important to not be afraid of failure and you know, try brave new things, because otherwise you just are repeating what other people are doing. And failing is okay as long as you learn from it, obviously. And I think I learn every day. I hope I learn every day. And I hope I never stop learning. That's the whole point of being alive.